This is my first sizable project on the FG3 loom. And for the first little bit of my work, I did a very distressing thing. I found myself getting pieces of yarn caught on the pins. These are the pins, of course. That's a very common newbie mistake. But I'm not a newbie. This should not have been happening. And I watched myself carefully and figured out what's going on. And in figuring that out, I may have figured out why it happens for people so much, period. This is a weight of yarn that I would normally use on a larger loom, the small gauge or the regular gauge loom, depending on what I was doing. So I'm working with it on a smaller gauge loom than I normally would because I'm making socks. And you've probably heard me say before, I think sweater fabrics usually should drape and sock fabric should usually be firm. So the FG3 is perfect for making this kind of yarn, light worsted or number 4 on the light end, into socks. But it's less room than I'm accustomed to having on the loom when I work with this size of yarn. Less room between the pegs and the pins. So I think what happened to me is my hands are so accustomed to feeling yarn that they said to my brain, oh, this is where we are. We're in this kind of yarn. We've got plenty of room. And I was flipping things over with gay abandon. And look what happened if with too much enthusiasm and too big emotion I flip over. I enclosed that peg. It happens here too if you're not careful. And it happens if you don't angle your tool correctly. So immediately when I discovered what was causing it, and it was happening more on knit stitches than purl stitches because of the way we form them, when doing this, there's less of a way to catch the yarn. So I started doing this with my finger on those pins. That way the yarn can't go over them, number 1, but because I can see them, they're in my way, I automatically learn to shorten up I'm going to call it my stroke of the motion. And with a feedback loop to retrain my brain, I quickly learned to make the motion smaller. Well, all of that makes me think that probably the business of making too big a motion is the main cause of catching. You don't think you're doing it, and you're certainly not purposely wrapping the pins. People learn within the first part of their kissing day not to enclose the pins in the wrap, to always go behind, not like this. Going like this will certainly cause it, but you quickly learn not to do that. I'm pretty sure that it's too big a motion that's always causing it. So one solution is what I just told you. Put your other hand in the way and retrain yourself. Another one is the purling tool. The angle at which we tend to use the purling tool causes us to lift and replace at a different angle and with a different motion than the motions we make using the regular hook. And it may be easier for you to avoid catching the pin using the purling tool. Watch as I purl slowly and look for some differences. Angle is one. Also, what my left hand is doing to help settle that stitch back on stands in the way of grabbing a pin as I settle it back. We tend to tighten up the stitch before setting it, and that's a help. Another potential help is the knit and purl tool. This is sold by the Knit and Purl company with their own website. And the very nature of this hook, note how small it is. the smaller size of the hooks seems to encourage us to make smaller motions, more precise motions, which may help you eradicate the tendency to accidentally pop your stitches over the pins just by responding to the needs of the tool and what it requires you to do to succeed in using it.